Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. And if you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power.
Hotep, which in the language of ancient Egypt means we come with justice in peace. Welcome to Freedom Now, a Saturday Pan-Africanist and Internationalist World Affairs program. Freedom Now is committed to the principle of the rights of all peoples and nations to self-determination. We thank you deeply for your contribution to KPFK, which permits programs like Freedom Now to stay on the air. In this era of corporate acquisition and co-optation of all dissident media, we provide the microphone, challenging their corporate and racist point of view. So stay tuned for Agenda here at Freedom Now.
Let's begin. Assalamu alaikum, people of goodwill. I offer you the greeting of thought, manifested skill to finally reveal the open-end chapter, as real as the flesh that you're embodied in. To the skull cavity, your mind is rotten, and I'll be riding in. And it might have been a slight rotation warp to curve the course. Of course, I'm cordial when I report. I won't distort.
Habarigani. This is Sister Tej with Freedom Now, and we wanted to thank all the listeners who contributed to support KPFK during our recent fund drive. We cannot do this without you, and so we thank you deeply. Today's Freedom Now agenda for this Saturday, May 17, 2025. It's Malcolm X weekend, and Monday marks Malcolm X's 100th birthday. Today, we commence with our ancestor, Didan Kamati, in the African drumbeat historical calendar with our sister Luyanda Kuboka. Then, we're joined by two of our respected veterans in the movement, Torrence Brannon-Reese and Msonga-Mbele Andre Parvenu, who are here to discuss their lead roles with the Malcolm X street naming ceremonies, which is also happening right now at Crenshaw and Florence until 11:30 a.m. for the Malcolm X corridor. And then the festival starts today at noon, so right after today's program in Africatown Limerick Park. We'll have two radio commentaries then from Prison Radio from political prisoner Mumia Abu Jamal, speaking on the ball of confusion, the oncoming depression, and also on Trump, Master of Chaos. So stay tuned for that. Finally, we continue our program here at the Pacific Waters in Los Angeles, where unfortunately and sadly dead sea lions, dolphins, and gray whales on our coast have been washing up for months now. So the mix of domoic acid levels we've never seen before in seasonal algae blooms are here with their dangerous neurotoxins for the sea mammals and birds that eat the fish, causing all of this reaction, also mixed with the devastating fire debris runoff from our January fires, where nothing remotely sufficient has been done for the cleanup, except, as we've seen, shuffling the sand. That includes the debris of over 300 electric vehicles. So in doing the math, all that to say, we talk about our oceans and indigenous communities who are also in the vanguard of Pacific stewardship, as we face serious colonial threats and actions resulting around the Pacific and world with ecocide and genocide. Our final guest is Brother Raki App, the international spokesperson for the United Liberation Movement for West Papua, which is a movement leading the Green State Vision for climate justice and social justice, which is indigenous-led. We discuss what the ocean means to the indigenous Pacific Islanders, the current political situations, and the upcoming 3rd United Nations Ocean Conference, happening this early June in Nice, France. Our music clip mix includes MLK, Zap Mama, Terrence Blanchard, AC Alone, Tevaka Beats Percussion, Vanessa Kwai, Michael Jackson, Madison Cali, Childish Gambino, and more. So sit back, phone a friend, and as always, we stand ready for revolution.
We would like to appreciate any constructive criticism, positive or negative, so please contact us at Freedom Now at KPFK. This is a labor of love and commitment. We are not paid, so any feedback helps instill in us the momentum to continue. Did you know that for every 1 hour of on-air broadcast, it takes about 8 to 10 hours of studio pre-production? Well, we will continue because, as always, we stand ready for the revolution.
Forward ever, backwards never. This is Sister Luyanda Koboka with Freedom Now's African Drumbeat Historical Calendar for the week of May 16th. This presentation is to keep the memories of our revolutionary ancestors and positive actions alive in the hearts and souls of our people, to inspire us to greater accomplishments. May 16th, 1966. Stokely Carmichael Kwame Ture becomes the chairman of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. SNCC, the foremost grassroots organizing effort led by students for the destruction of the de facto segregation and the empowerment of African sharecroppers in the Black Belt South. Stokely's rise heralded the rise of Black power as a major ideological stepping stone towards Pan-Africanism. May 16, 1865, Susan Lafeche Picot was born, an Omaha Paiute, the first Native woman contemporary doctor who gave care to all patients without discrimination and banned the sale and consumption of alcohol. She was a lecturer and organizer who drew the links between the European slaughter of the Plains buffalo and the destruction of the Native American culture. May 17, 1582, Queen Zinga was born. She was the warrior queen of the Congo and Ndongo, who resisted Portuguese domination of her people. She is considered one of the most remarkable global women of the century. She led resistance against European colonialization for over 50 years. She united the Ndongo, Matamba, Congo, Kasji, Dembos, Kisma, and Central Planalto kingdoms into a Pan-African empire to strengthen African resistance. She declared that all slaves who reached her empire would be free. May 17, 1954. The United States Supreme Court outlaws school segregation in Brown versus the Board of Education, thereby injecting African students into Eurocentric schools, advancing the process of Europeanization of African people. May 18, 1803. Catherine Flon removed the white cloth from the Haitian national flag and sewed in blue and red cloths together to symbolize the unity of blacks and mulattoes, thereby providing a united force against the French. May 18, 1950. Brazilian National Council of Black Women founded by Maria Nascimento. Brazil has the largest population of African people in the Western Hemisphere. May 19, 1874. Inessa Armand was born. She was one of the most important women in the Russian Revolution. She was the president of the Moscow Society for Improving the Lot of Women Fighting the Tsarist feudal regime. She was imprisoned and became a major propagandist in the first modern socialist revolution in the world, who with Lenin and the party built a new social order where the working class became the dominant ruling class. She served as the first director of the women's section in the Central Committee of the Communist Party. May 19, 1925. Alhaj Malik Shabazz, also known as Malcolm X, was born. Malcolm X rose from the shattering experience of his father's death by the Ku Klux Klan, then street hustler, and then became the national spokesperson for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and evolved into a Pan-Africanist guided by the revolutionary leadership of Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Toure, and Julius Nyerere. Malcolm X stated that you cannot understand the struggle in Mississippi until you understand the struggle in the Congo, for we have the same enemy. May 20th, 1973. The Popular Front for the Liberation of Sequel El Hamra and Rio Oro, or Polisario, founded to fight for the independence of the Western Sahara in Africa from Spanish colonialism and Moroccan neo-colonialism. This has been Freedom Now on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara, where every week is Black History Week. Please, for any comments or contributions, email us at freedomnow@kpfk.org. We will close with the Unity Freedom chant of Amandla, and you respond Awetu. Join us wherever you are for the symbolic show of unity. Amandla!
Awetu.
Amandla!
Awetu.
Amandla!
Awetu.
This is Sister Tej with Freedom Now, and this weekend marks the 33rd Annual Malcolm X Festival, a powerful celebration of leadership, culture, activism, and legacy right here in Los Angeles. And joining us today are two respected veterans of the movement who are the driving forces behind this incredible event this year. First, we have Torrence Brannon-Reese. He's an educator, musician, and founder of FAMLI Incorporated, which is the foundation of arts, mentoring, leadership, and innovation, a nonprofit that mentors and uplifts the youth through arts and leadership. He's long used his platform to fuse culture with community empowerment, and he's played a vital role in efforts to memorialize Malcolm X right here in Los Angeles. And also with us is our other respected veteran of the movement, Msonga-Mbele Andre Parvenu, an urban planner, community organizer, and former member of California Citizens Redistricting Commission. His career has been dedicated to ensuring that marginalized communities have a voice, whether through civic engagement, public planning, or cultural preservation. And together, they're helping lead this year's festival, honoring the legacy of Malcolm X, while building a space for healing, resistance, and unity. Welcome back to Freedom Now, Torrence Brannon-Reese and Msonga-Mbele Andre Parvenu.
Welcome. Thank you for having us.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here, Tej.
So we want to talk about this year's festival and start off with, what does the 33rd Malcolm X Festival mean for Los Angeles today, and how has it evolved over the years as a cultural space to honor Malcolm X's legacy through art, music, and community empowerment?
Well, I'll take a crack at that one first. First of all, thank you again for allowing us to have this platform to speak our truth. And I just say that the 33 years to me has flew by. You know, I can't really believe that it's been 33 years since, you know, the spirits led me to start this event around the spirit and the legacy of this magnificent soldier and warrior that stood in the vanguard of the movement for us and gave his life at the age of 39 in 1965. So we're very happy to be, I would say, the premier organization for the past 33 years that has done the most to make sure that this man's memory and his legacy and his work is remembered. And so to me, it means kind of coming full circle in a way, because now, you know, we have an entirely new generation that don't even know about, let's say, the movie that Spike Lee did and Denzel Washington did back in '92. They're not even aware of that. They haven't read the book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X. So we have an opportunity to introduce this legacy to an entire new generation of young people who I am sure, and I am very confident, they will carry this legacy forward.
Right on. And so then, can you tell us about your work on the movement to rename or co-name Crenshaw Boulevard as Malcolm X Boulevard? And what would this change symbolize for the community? And what resistance or challenges have you faced along the way?
Well, I'll start and then I'll stop and allow my brother Msonga to come in at some point. I'll just say that I thought it was critically important that Malcolm have the same kind of respect beside his spiritual brother, Martin Luther King. And I found out about the movement to change that. I think it was, I'm forgetting the name of it before, but it was changed into Martin Luther King. Santa Barbara, I think it was.
Yeah.
Barbara. And, it was, and I had a chance to meet Celeste King, who was the premier person responsible for doing that. And I thought that it would be symbolically important and symbolically beautiful to have Malcolm and Martin come together. And I actually traveled around the nation back in the early mid-90s to 2000s to find other cities who had a Malcolm X Boulevard. Most of them already had a Dr. King Boulevard or Avenue or something like that. But many of them did not have a Malcolm X Boulevard, and I began to wonder why. And it didn't take that long to find out. And so it didn't take long to understand why. And it was because of the misunderstanding of who Malcolm was. It was because of the fear of Malcolm on the part of many people, black and white, who were, afraid of the message and the clarity that he spoke with. And so I found that even more attractive, even more of a reason for me to want to push to get a street. And there was no better street, particularly when I did the research and found out that George Lafayette Crenshaw was an arch white supremacist racist who did not want black folks living on that side of the city. And so I thought that it was important for us to rename those streets, not only Crenshaw, but other streets after our heroes. But let's start with Malcolm and get him to come together with his brother, Martin. And yeah, that's where we are now. I want to back up and let my brother Msonga come in and say what he wants to say.
No, I think that's absolutely right. And I'll start by saying this, that I joined FAMLI and became very active with the FAMLI organization. As we all know, that's the foundation for arts, mentorship, leadership, and innovation. And when I saw the work that Tori was doing, I felt compelled to join that effort. And I'm very pleased to serve on the advisory committee to actually move this movement further down the road. And what he said is absolutely right. The Crenshaw family gained their wealth on the backs of black people in the South, in Missouri. And they took that wealth after the war, the Civil War, and they came here to Los Angeles, and they just transferred their wealth. Reminds us of somebody else that we know that came from South Africa off the backs, becoming rich off the backs of some folks down there, and transferred that wealth to swallow up a lot of land, and they most namely in the Crenshaw district. So that wealth that Crenshaw family was made off the backbones of black people after the Civil War. But bringing it up to date, it's significant. First of all, it's significant that we have that name Crenshaw along with the name that name Malcolm X along Crenshaw, because we're expecting millions of people to come here over the next few years with all the activities happening with the World Cup, the Super Bowls, and the Olympics. And we want them to see along that corridor that name when they last leave Los Angeles and first arrive here. We want that name Malcolm X there and not simply the name Crenshaw. And the last thing else, I know we're short on time, I'll just say this though. Tori's vision has been superb. The timing could not have been more perfect. By naming that corridor the Malcolm X corridor, we link the names of Rosa Parks with the Rosa Parks Freeway. We passed the dead presidents, Adams and Jefferson and all, but we link it with Bishop Blake Square at Jefferson. We link it with the New Orleans corridor, which is east along Jefferson Boulevard. So we link the name Malcolm with that area. We link it with Tom Bradley Square. We link it with Brenda Marsh Mitchell Square. We link it with Freedom Square, where we'll be at on this upcoming Saturday, the 17th, raising a sign right there on that significant corridor with Martin Luther King and with Malcolm X. It's an idea whose time has long to come, and we're making that happen. We link the name also with Leimert Park and Sankofa Park, which is being constructed as we speak. We link it with the name of Julian Dixon, a famous congressman in this area, a known congressman. We link the name with Nipsey Hussle at Slauson. we link the name with Hyde Park and Park Mesa Heights and other significant landmarks along the way. So it's the past has been an incentive for me to get involved. In the present, linking Malcolm with those individuals mentioned, it's also a driving force for me to work along with Tori and the family organization to actually make this happen.
Right on. Because that gives us a segue right into our next question as well. But first, we want to remind our listening audience that we are speaking with two of our respected veterans of the movement, Torrence Brannon-Reese and Msonga-Mbele Andre Parvenu. And so we want to ask next, how are the younger generations connecting with Malcolm X's legacy? And how are you using platforms like this festival and your broader community work to pass on this message of self-determination, identity, and activism?
I definitely think we're doing a most beautiful thing by involving our youth who are central to this event and many of the events that we do. So we run, renowned mentoring, what I call life mastery programs, primarily See a Man, Be a Man, and Princess to Queen. And I want to do a shout out to all of the young students, their parents, schools that we work in, etc. But you will see the students there on the 17th at 9 in the morning at Obama in Crenshaw, where we launch with a press conference. And you'll hear the voices of the students. You'll see them at the festival at 12 noon as they receive certificates of appreciation from the city council, particularly Councilwoman Heather Hutt, who we want to thank for pushing this through the city council. Get these signs up on Crenshaw Boulevard. But the youth are central to everything that we do. They're intimately involved in every aspect of the event, from helping to coordinate. They're at our meetings. They'll be there setting up tables and chairs. And so we think that the best way to inspire young people is to not only talk to them, but talk with them, listen to them, and then give them opportunity to be involved. So our youth are involved in every aspect of what we're doing.
Right on. So as we're approaching 12 o'clock during this Freedom Now hour, if you are in the car, this is happening over, again, at the intersection of
Crenshaw and Vernon. That's where the festival will start at 12. But we start out with a press conference at 9 a.m. that morning at Obama in Crenshaw. And then we move from there at about 10 to Martin Luther King in Crenshaw. And then we move from there to Florence in Crenshaw. And at both of those last two stops, they're hoisting up signs that will be up forever, indicating and codifying Malcolm X corridor along Crenshaw in the community, the most majority Black community left in this city.
Right on. And before we get to our last question, do you want to go ahead and give our listeners details about the event?
Msonga, go ahead, brother.
Well, I'll say this. Yeah, it's going to be a wonderful event. We're having, as Tori just mentioned, the itinerary. At the festival itself, we're going to launch the festival there that's unlike anything that's been done before. What we're doing, this whole comprehensive four-component approach has never been done in the history of Los Angeles. Never. A street unveiling, sign unveiling, along with a festival. And this year, this festival will be deserving of the I'm sure that the Malcolm X family, the Shabazz family, will be very proud of this festival because it's a combination of good, wholesome music and lyrics and inspiring conversation. And we need this today, in this day and time. And Tori can speak on our theme this year, humanity by any means necessary. Go ahead, Tori. Please elaborate on the festival itself.
Yeah, the theme is human rights by any means necessary.
That's right.
Malcolm X was a human rights leader. He made a distinction between human rights and civil rights, saying that human rights was something that human beings are born with, and that civil rights, which we all should have, but civil rights was something that somebody gave you, and they usually gave it to you after blood was spilled. And so we focusing on human rights, which is an international concept, and we're concerned with our brothers and sisters all around the world, in India, in China, in Pakistan, Afghanistan, over in all parts of the Middle East and Africa. And I want to send a shout out and support, message of support to Ibrahim Traore, a brother who's in the spirit of Malcolm and Lumumba and Thomas Sankara and others, and who right now is helping to continue to get us to think about revolution and about change in this world. Shout out to Ibrahim Traore, Burkina Faso.
Ashe. And I just want to say that very quickly, I know we're closing, that by having a celebration on Saturday, and if this is aired on Saturday, come on out today, the rest of the day. I know what time Freedom Now airs, so you still have time up until 7 o'clock to have a wonderful time in solidarity. Los Angeles joins in this celebration, the centennial celebration, with Berkeley, Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose, San Diego, Omaha, Nebraska, where he was born, Lansing, Michigan, where he spent his childhood, Detroit, Boston, where he stayed, New York City, the Shabazz Center. Let's give them a shout out for the work that they're doing at the home base, the nucleus of all that Shabazz family, the grave site where he at Washington, the Anacostia District, Jacksonville, Atlanta, Chicago, Minneapolis, Milwaukee, and all around the world, even in Toronto, London, San Jose, and as was mentioned before, the Caribbean and on the continent. So we join in this effort to raise the name of Malcolm X and celebrate him on this birthday weekend.
Right on. We just have a brief moment to check in with you to see how we can support you with further efforts. So what kind of public support is needed most right now, both for the renaming effort and the broader movement?
Well, there's always a need for us to support our own efforts. And so in the spirit of the brothers and sisters who came out of Reconstruction and did something for themselves, building their own townships, starting the Negro baseball leagues and all of those things that we had to do to survive in this country. We have a website where we show you everything that we're doing, how we buy suits and stuff for the young children that we are dealing with. And they can go to the website, www.famlisoul.org. Family is spelled F-A-M-L-I, soul, like soul music, S-O-U-L, famlisoul.org. And they can get all the information about our organization, everything that we're doing. And they can support in many ways. They can volunteer, they can mentor, they can send a check or use their credit card and support the revolution, support the movement.
Right on. So we wanted to thank you. So we've been speaking with our two respected veterans of the movement, Torrence Brannon-Reese Msonga-Mbele, Andre Parvenu, who are organizers for the 33rd Malcolm X Festival. We hope to see everybody out there in the Radioverse who is local to LA. Come join us. And we want to thank you again for your time and your contribution to our program today and in the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Tej.
Thank you, dear sister. We appreciate you.
That's it. Freedom Now.
Freedom now.
Give a word out to Dr. Horne as well for all the great work he does.
This is Sister Flora, and you are listening to Freedom Now at KPFK 90.7 FM in occupied Mexico, including Los Angeles, 98.7 FM Santa Barbara, 93.7 FM in San Diego, and streaming live on the web at kpfk.org. Today's program, as well as 10 prior editions, can be reheard at kpfk.org/audio archive, and scroll down to Freedom Now. From 12 to 1 p.m., following Freedom Now is her sister Assumpta, with Spotlight Africa addressing issues facing Mother Africa. For a truly alternative international perspective on world affairs, check out RTTV Russia, CCTV China, and online at Presna, Latina Cuba Telesur Venezuela, News 24 South Africa, and Press TV Iraq.
When we think about the economy, most of us are in a ball of confusion. A ball of confusion isn't just a great song back during the days of R&B, rhythm and blues. A ball of confusion means that things are happening all around us that continues to confuse us, and therefore they destabilize us. Because when you're confused, you can't move. You are psychologically a deer caught in headlights. Let's think about the economy right now. We're entering the age of tariffs, which is almost unprecedented in American modern history. We have just heard a spokesman for the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. These are cats who are the masters of capitalist accumulation, or in other words, getting and keeping money. And they said that the downfall in economic activity in the United States is approaching rates equitable to 1932. When I heard those words, a chill went through my bones. Because 1932 is the era of the Great Depression. You'll hear on every channel, with the possible exception of Fox or Newsmax, and economists say that we are approaching a recession. A recession only means 2 quarters of downward activity in economic. That means several months, 6 months or more. But no one dares use the D word. And I ain't talking about democracy. The D word is depression. It is one of the most feared words in the English language. But the IMF just went there. They didn't just come up with a number and say 1932. They were speaking in economic language to economists and historians and analysts that this economy is approaching a depression. And that should concern everybody in this country. It is true that the vast majority of economic activity in America is customer generated. That means that when people go out and buy, they are the engines of the American economy. And that's why the American economy is so robust. But if that's true, the obverse is true as well. When there is a lack of that kind of economic activity, then recessions and yes, depression is in the future. It is nothing to celebrate, but it is something to think about and consider very seriously. With love, not fear. This is Mumia Abu Jamal. These commentaries are recorded by Prison Radio. Trump is the master of chaos, and that's because he knows how to touch that nerve in the American psyche that makes people crazy. So it's fear, it's resentment, it's all of these kinds of things. Because, I mean, this truly is homophobia at a psychological level. And people are voting on that, and they haven't really studied the people they're voting for. They're foxified, they're terrified. Let us be clear. They have a right to look at the Democratic Party with distaste. Did the Democratic Party betray the working class? Nakedly. Because of NAFTA. Because NAFTA was a class betrayal. You know, the party used to be the party of the working class. This was them doing a sweetheart deal. Well, I'm not going to say them. This was, you know, a Clinton and Clintonite sweetheart deal for Wall Street. And I remember him selling it. You know, I'm sitting up on death row. And he would get up and say, well, this will not be like, you know, your father or your mother, you know, worked for 30 years for a certain company. You'll change jobs. But guess what? We'll retrain you so that you can have other jobs in other parts of the economy. This will make the United States the financial capital of the world. He was speaking for Wall Street. That's all he was speaking for. And again, you know, Clinton is a master politician. I've seen him do things that were stunning, but he was a master politician. He sold it. You know, the whole idea of NAFTA began with the Bushes and Republicans. He took it at a moment of peril as a political shield and armor, right, to pass the wishes of the investor class. And it cost perhaps 1,750,000 jobs, mostly in middle America, but industrial jobs that left and will not come back. The illusion that these tariffs will attract companies to the United States is just that, an illusion. It will not happen, in my view. And that's because business loves certainty. They love calmness. They cannot work in the midst of chaos. And this is even though chaos is a perfect tool for politicians who want to destabilize society and create, you know, mass fear about nothing, like, you know, trans athletes. Little things like that have deep psychological impacts on people who do not trust the government anyway after NAFTA. You know, so did the Democratic Party betray the working class? Nakedly. Did they serve their Wall Street investor class? Openly. And, you know, therein lies the rub. I mean, a lot of the Steve Bannon commentary rests on NAFTA. And that's at the core of his attack of the democratic state, the liberal state, that they do not care about you. And there's a ring of truth in there. There's a ring of truth in there. They don't care about, you know, governments are engines of force. They're not moral agents, right? They don't care. They don't care how they achieve their ends. They just achieve their ends. And they serve the interests of the wealthy. I mean, duh. These commentaries are recorded by Noel Hanrahan of Prison Radio.
For Freedom Now, this is Sister Tej, and today we're so honored to welcome back to Freedom Now our brother Raki Ap, the international spokesperson for the United Liberation Movement for West Papua. He was born in exile after his father, renowned West Papuan anthropologist and musician Arnold Ap, was killed by the Indonesian military. Our brother Raki has transformed personal tragedy into powerful advocacy. He's based in the Netherlands, and he champions West Papuan self-determination, climate justice, and human rights, while calling on international actors, especially the Dutch government, to reckon with their historical responsibilities. And as a key voice for the United Liberation Movement for West Papua's Green State Vision, our brother Raki Ap works tirelessly to mobilize global solidarity and secure West Papua's rightful place on the world stage. Welcome back to Freedom Now, brother Raki Ap.
Thank you so much, sister, for that amazing introduction and for having me once again.
Right on. We got a lot to talk about the work that's going on. And this segment in particular also focuses on culture and climate justice as well. And so can you give our listeners a little bit of background about West Papua first, just so we can locate ourselves on the map?
Absolutely. So West Papua is the western half of the island of New Guinea, right above Australia. And it is the world's largest tropical island, housing the third largest rainforest, and has been described and researched as one of the most biodiverse region, both on land and marine area. It's a unique place, unique island that I would love to share more about. Unfortunately, the injustices that are happening there.
The first thing we want to ask you about regards ocean culture and climate crisis. And so how do West Papuan indigenous communities relate to the ocean culturally and spiritually, and maintain that relationship with the ocean in the face of political oppression and climate change? And then how can their traditional ecological knowledge also influence global ocean governance? A very, very, very loaded question.
There you go. A lot of dimensions, a lot of interaction. But let me start by also explaining that West Papua, as part of the island of New Guinea, houses more than 1,000 plus different tribes. So on the eastern side of the island, the independent state of Papua New Guinea, we got more than 800 tribes with their own language and way of living in their communities. So if you zoom into West Papua, the part that I'm from, we are talking about more than 250 different tribes with their own cultures, values, and spiritual connection to both land and water or sea, ocean. So to start with that, it shows that the island of New Guinea is so unique in diversity, both from cultural and tribal perspective as from biodiversity, land and ocean. So if you zoom out to that way of diversity and understanding that these different tribes and beings are living there for more than 60,000 years, full in balance with the environment, you will understand how proud we are on this place on Earth, and how we are proven guardians of this unique, pristine island on this planet, flourishing in many places still. And that's why we are here, to educate the world about what they can learn from indigenous knowledge, and in particular in this case the West Papuan tribes. So knowing that our ancestors traveled through sea, we see sea as many other island states and island people see as highway. This is our main transport way. It is not disconnected. It connects us from island to island, and from other land masses to other land masses all across Pacific, all from the southern part of Asia. We see our ancestors traveling all up to the highlands of West Papua. Understanding this, especially zooming back on mine parents, mine island, which is the Biak Island on the coastal area of West Papua, everything is connected through sea. If that is your main transport way, which is your highway, whether it is your supermarket, because we get our fishes, our food from the sea, you will see that we are spiritually connected. Culturally, the way we hunt, the way we cook, the way we fill in our time, it's all connected to the sea. So you will have a total different connection when you grew up as a kid. Sea is all around you. It is part of your education system. It is part of your culture, because traditions are connected to the shells that you find in the sea, to animals that you see as your spiritual ancestor. So this are just some important elements to understand that our culture is very much related to the sea. When you are at this very moment a tribal community living in the coast, living next to the waters, you are directly connected to that sea, or to animals that you are seeing amongst the sea. What else can I say? That without practicing our culture, it is that practice that makes us indigenous West Papuan. This is what my father has putting into his songs. When we lose our way of cooking, when we lose the way how we make our clothes, when we lose the traditions that we make music, then who are we on this planet? So it's our culture and identity what makes us West Papuan. Whether you are living on the coast or on the highlands, it's this, simple practice of the way we cook, the way we hunt, the way we dress ourselves, the way we wash, the way we make music is what makes us indigenous West Papuan. And I think all these elements that we learn from the moment you are a baby, you will receive the music that our elders are practicing when they're cooking, when they're hunting. And this is, so educating is starting even when you are still in the womb of your mom. You will hear and you will feel the spiritual connection through music. And And I think these elements is what we miss. Where do you practice this in the global north? I grew up in the Netherlands. And I said, well, the thing that made me so powerful is that I try to embrace the knowledge that my father has kept in through songs. As anthropologist, he know all this, many of the different Papuan tribes. And through his music, he empowered us to go back to who we are, learn these practices in the forest, in the seas, in our communities. Listen to the stories that not any institution in the global north received because they've erased these kind of stories. They've erased this culture to colonialism from then and now. And I hope this several answers. I hope I've touched the really tough questions that you've asked me, but it's about understanding how indigenous communities live for thousands of years in full connection with the sea, with the rivers, with the mountains, with the forest. And this connection is what makes them connected 1,000 years ago, but even today. That's why you see we are talking about the 4 different worlds in West Papua. We got West Papuans like me who are living in a modern country, but we got ancient West Papuans who have never seen a white person on an airplane. And these different worlds of knowledge is what I try to pack to make people understand that why we are in this mess what we see today. We are totally disconnected from many beings in this space as well. And this is what we can learn from indigenous West Papuans who see the river as their family member, who see the sea as their family member, who see the fishes as their family member, who see the mountains as their family member. And they got this knowledge from stories. Without any institutions, we learn this ancient knowledge even today. And that's something that I think is really important, hopefully an important element in my answer.
Right on. Thank you so much for that comprehensive view into what's happening anthropologically, currently, and now we're going to also tie in to some more social political components about what's happening. So we want to kind of touch upon sovereignty, environmental justice, and the Green State vision. And so we want to ask you, Brother Raki, how are West Papua's struggles for political sovereignty and environmental justice connected? And what environmental injustices are West Papuans currently facing under Indonesian rule, particularly in relation to marine ecosystems and coastal communities that you've mentioned? And how does the United Liberation Movement for West Papua's Green State vision propose a sustainable indigenous-led alternative?
Big questions once again, but let me give it a good try. Sister, so what you see is all these ancient practices on land, but particularly in sea, especially for coastal communities like my parents and my ancestors in my village, is that as soon as Indonesia colonized our land, our people, you could clearly see that they put boundaries in the way we could practice our culture, our tradition on sea, and even playing music. The reason my father was put in prison was because he educated our men and our women and our children to embrace our culture. So the first thing that the colonizers did is they tried to erase our culture. And that's why my father became an enemy of the state, because they saw how he used his work as anthropologist to understand the diversity of our traditions, but basically also unifying this diversity through the knowledge that he collected by going to the villages, collecting the stories. So what the colonizers did is by, dividing these communities, provoking the different tribes to fight among each other. Conquer and divide is a common thing that colonizers do. It's one of an example that basically disrupted our way of making music, our way of hunting, our way of, cooking and preparing our own food. So you saw the colonial injustice basically going all across West Papua, by prohibiting us to play the music that, my father, for example, wrote. Even up to this, they banned this kind of educational music about who we are, about the culture, is a clear example. Another element is, of course, pushing us away from the land that we live for thousands of years. The word land grabbing is something that a lot of colonial powers allowing to do by allowing corporate and extractive industries to take over indigenous lands. And what you clearly see after these corporate entities come in is that we can't practice this ancient tradition because we are forced to go to the cities. So where we had communities living on island, dependent on the oceans, we see aggressive nickel mines coming in the most biodiverse marine hotspot, for example, in Raja Ampat in West Papua. Nickel mines come in and do what they do best, land grabbing, force indigenous communities out of their land from the island, living into the big cities. And what you see is the entire ecosystem will be disrupted. You will see the rivers and sea being polluted and entire ecosystem being destroyed. So these are some clear examples when colonialism is allowed to do what they do best, colonized and forced indigenous people who are the best custodians, the protectors of this environment. We have shown them why the New Guinea island is still pristine island, because we are living in peace and balance with that nature. Until colonialism started, we see the military coming in, allowing corporations to come in and destroy our way of living, with the result that the entire ecosystem will be destroyed. So these are some examples how colonialism, militarism, extractivism, and racism goes hand in hand. You cannot separate this. So just tapping into how Indonesian colonialism changed our connection to the river, to the sea, to the forest. On all sides, we are being attacked. And as soon as the indigenous peoples are disappearing, you will see simultaneously the forest and the rivers will be destroyed. And if you zoom out, this is what have caused climate and biodiversity crisis. Because when indigenous peoples are being forced away, the biodiversity will last in a rapid speed. And that's why we are bringing forward the importance of understanding the crucial role that indigenous peoples globally are playing at this very moment. It are indigenous peoples who are manage more than 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity. And looking at West Papua as guardian of the third largest rainforest, a unique tropical island, we must connect the dots of injustices. Ecocide, genocide, militarism, extractivism is what we see after Indonesia invaded West Papua by military force and never left since they come in for more than 60 years ago. So connecting all these injustices system is basically exposing the root causes of the climate and biodiversity crisis, which is clear, in our case, pure form of colonialism, pure form of capitalism, pure form of militarism and racism against indigenous West Papuans. So when you see this, the most obvious, just and cheapest climate solution would be giving indigenous people back their land, giving indigenous people back the way that they've practiced this ancient tradition connected to the seas and to the forest, to restore and make peace with the nature again. That's what we are calling the world with the Green State Vision, which is a cutting edge indigenous proposal to tackle the climate and biodiversity crisis. And basically, it is a call to the modern man to listen what indigenous peoples can learn, us in the global north, because we don't learn how to give back. And that's what indigenous people without a prestige university or institution learn their children from day one, how to give back this tree to your future generation, how to use the forest in a way that it can restore itself. These are common things that indigenous peoples, not only West Papua, but learn all across the world. Give back, reciprocity. And I think that's what we've tried to do with the Green State Vision, is basically to serve notice to all these extractive industries, but also to all the governments who are working with Indonesia to violate our human rights and to govern our own country, to practice our culture. And by connecting these injustices, we are basically also offering the world a solution by stopping the harm against indigenous peoples and the environment. And then the result would be that the nature and biodiversity will restore. And if you zoom this out and you will copy this way of thinking and this way of policy, the Green State policy all across the world, then we can talk about a just energy transition when you give ownership back to indigenous people because they know how to preserve the ecosystems on land, but also on the sea and the ocean. Wow. I hope I've touched.
Yes. Oh, that was so comprehensive.
Your questions in some way.
Yes, I know they're pretty loaded, and we are limited on time. So thank you for sharing, all of that information with our listeners, so we can gain a deeper understanding now about what it looks like for global solidarity, addressing colonial legacies and international platforms. And so, as we know, this upcoming June in Nice, France, is the third United Nations Oceans Conference. And so what role should international forums like the UN Ocean Conference and former colonial powers play in supporting indigenous sovereignty and environmental protection, particularly in West Papua, which you had kind of touched upon about the stewardship continuing in the hands of indigenous people? But what would this look like in terms of building this relationship for them to kind of understand this politically?
Yeah, I think this is one of the most important questions, but also a power structure that we have to understand, because it's all about power structures. Who are sitting on the buttons of power? That's what it is all about, yeah. And I'll just give a brief example about what I've said before about the climate summits or biodiversity summits all around the world. If indigenous peoples or leaders would sit on the power buttons, the decision-making seats during Climate Summit 1 or even the Ocean Summit 1. Ocean Summit 2 wasn't needed. That's what representation means, because those leaders would take a total different decision than the ones before. That's why we have this mess, right? That's why we are detached and we do not take responsibility for the harm that we are creating in the oceans, and even with the deep sea mining on ahead. Island state leaders would take, most of them would take a total different decision. If you reflect on the West Papua, of course it would be a call out that Indonesia would be our representation. So it's about who would represent the West Papuans. It will be the United Liberation Movement for West Papua with more than 1.8 million signatures that we have collected. We are the true representation of West Papua. But in these spaces, you will see Indonesia to have their vote. So this is something that we have to understand and try to reset who are sitting on the decision-making seats when these kind of summits will happen. So my call to people who are listening to this would be challenging and supporting those who should be there, like the United Liberation Movement. Trying even to be at such a summit is a challenge, because we need the funding, we need the accreditation, and this is where allies can tap in. So support us to get at such a summit, to make sure that our voice are being heard in the first place. And at the very end, we are trying to, disrupt Indonesia's legitimacy in those spaces to have a say about what is best for the people of West Papua. We are the guardians of the world's largest tropical island, of West Papua, of this pristine island. It's not Indonesia. They're the ones who are causing harm, and allowing them to continuously have a say is part of the problem. So we must criticize Indonesia in those spaces, and we must allow West Papuan representatives and other indigenous peoples to have a power position in those spaces, because they're the ones who take the right decision to restore the imbalances in our decisions, and that create harm and imbalance in the real world, in the forest, in the oceans, in the seas.
Right on. Thank you so much, Brother Raki App. I do want to briefly mention that Nainoa Thompson, who is the CEO of the Polynesian Voyaging Society and a master navigator for 50 years of the Pacific waters. In March, he recently presented in Paris at an ocean summit ahead of this conference. He hand-delivered a SOS Oceans Manifesto to French President Emmanuel Macron. And just as a point of personal privilege, my doctoral work was with math lessons from the Polynesian Voyaging Society, so my internal depth of knowledge on this topic is very heartfelt. But what I took away from this is that when you look at a United Nations Ocean Summit, right? And it's indigenous knowledge from the Hawaiian Islands, right? That is presenting this manifesto. That cannot go unseen. That indigenous knowledge is in the lead, being presented to the French president, and we must take that very seriously. And so we salute you for what you're doing. I'm hoping maybe I can attend as well with the press, so we'll see what happens. But this is such an important topic for environmental protection and social organization of indigenous peoples and our planet. So again, we've been speaking with our brother Raki App, who is the international spokesperson for the United Liberation Movement for West Papua, joining us from the Netherlands. Thank you so much, brother Raki App.
Thank you so much for having me once again.
And in closing, we'd like to thank our guests. Thank you, Torrence Brannon-Reese and Msonga-Mbele, Andre Parvenu. Thank you to our brother Raki App in the Netherlands. Thank you to our producers, Sister Flora, Sister Femi, Brother Brandon. Thank you, Dr. Gerald Horne, as always. Thank you to our board op Wendell and all those who made today's program possible. This program, as well as prior programs, can be reheard for the next 60 days. You can go to kpfk.org, audio archives, scroll to Freedom Now, We'll see you out at the festival today for Malcolm X Weekend Festival happening at Leimert Park, Africa Town. So until next weekend, as always, we stand ready for revolution.
We state these facts only to let you know that those of us who are revolutionary, Pan-Africanists, is not because we love revolution. It is historically determined, and we have no alternative but to follow history and to use history for the benefit of our people.
Power to the people.